speaking of just self-healing technology,
Mhm.
yes, there's a lot of research being
Okay.
done on this field. Many different mechanisms, different chemistries that are being explored.
Mhm.
However, there's not so much research in applying this new findings.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Iron Ring. I'm Alexandra, a civil engineering student. And in today's episode, we have on special guest Twinkal Patel. She's a polymer chemist and a PhD candidate at Concordia University. And we really want to go and talk about her research in self-healing technology. So that's what we'll be discussing today. And thank you so much, Twinkal, for being on the episode.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here.
Absolutely. So again, like I said, we really want to talk about the research you've been doing into these self-healing technologies. And I guess the first thing I really want to look into is what got you interested in becoming a polymer chemist? What was it that got you into that?
So initially, I had no desire or intention on becoming a polymer chemist. I even didn't know what's a polymer chemist, to be honest.
Yeah.
But throughout my educational journey, I had some amazing teachers and professors through SAGEP, through university, who taught chemistry, and that just sparked interest in
Okay.
this field. So to better explore it, I did a independent project at the end of my undergrad, which
Okay.
is basically working in a research lab at a professor at Concordia. So I got to experience what is graduate student life, how is research done, and that just really inspired me. I just fell in love with the idea of being in a lab, just discovering something new, solving problems. That's what engineering, chemistry, all these fields are about. So I just really love the idea of being able to solve something that's not done. And that is what led me to really study polymer chemistry or even material chemistry.
Wow, that's really great. And I mean, you can already see with your research, you are achieving that goal that you're looking out for, and I guess changing certain, I guess, technologies and implementing things that are going to help people. So, and that's what we want to get into is what is that technology? So, can you explain what the technology is that you developed with your team, how you developed it, and also I know it can be applied like self-healing technology, so it can be applied to cell phones and other applications. So can you kind of guide us through a little bit of that process and what really is that kind of technology?
Yeah, so self-healing on its own is basically a just a artificial material that can repair itself.
Okay.
However, this field really started to gain attention about 10 years ago. That's the self-healing mechanism back then was basically using encapsulated mechanism, where the material is on the surface. It has encapsulations of, for simplicity, we'll call it glue.
Okay.
It's encapsulated with glue in a let's say sac, and if there is a cut that happens on the surface, the encapsulated material is broken as well, and the glue is flowing out, and that would allow it to heal the surface.
Okay.
However, more research was done, and there were, of course, drawbacks to that. One is encapsulating these materials on the surface decrease their mechanical properties.
Oh, okay.
Because they're not as strong as before.
Yeah.
And also, once this encapsulated material is used, if there's a cut to happen at that particular spot, it's a one-time thing. The crack again would not heal because you've used up all the material for the healing process. So further, more research was done. Other mechanisms were discovered. Currently, the one that's highly studied is reversible chemistry.
Okay.
That's basically you're creating a network. You're designing these materials with a network that has reversible chemistries. For instance, reversible bonds. There's many of them. For instance, Diels-Alder, that's reversible using heat. The bonds can break and reattach themselves. Other bonds, they use UV lights to reattach these bonds.
Okay.
So many different things. Some use water as well. The one I'm working on is polyurea. That bond, at room temperature, there is healing, but you would need a little bit of temperature to increase the healing process or decrease the time.
Okay.
So we use that this network, this chemistry, to design a film that can be added on top of the cell phone.
Okay.
So if there is a crack that occurs on the screens, it can just over time on its own heal. And if to increase the healing process, you can add very low temperatures, 30 degrees. That's almost like a hair dryer or something, to allow the healing of your cell phone to be much faster.
When I first heard of it, I think it's really great technology. I know, like you said, they've been developing it for around a decade, but it is really, really great to see it happening, I guess, closer to home. So I think that's really amazing. And you can already tell that it does have really a lot of applications in where it can be beneficial either to, I guess, just for products that are more for entertainment or like a cell phone or things. But it could be applied, I guess, to a lot of other things, I guess, in the medical field or something where we do use technology more for, I guess, life-saving purposes or things like that. So what other applications can we implement this technology for?
So the reason this topic is so hot, we would call it a hot topic, is because the applications are almost endless. It can be applied to almost anything.
Wow.
They've tested soft electronics for biomedical purposes, marines, so many things.
Wow.
But speaking of biomedical applications, one of the particular one is, for instance, the pacemaker, as well as coating, for instance, car paint. If that one, it's actually already in the industry. There's certain paints that if you have a scratch or small scratch on your car, the crack or scratch would heal itself.
Wow.
So that's already in effect, but that's just one of the applications. Also, NASA, just a couple of years ago, they developed a self-healing wiring system that they've incorporated into their space shuttle orbital.
I guess that really makes you think more of how, I guess, we're, sustaining our technology for longer. And that makes me think, like, would this have, I guess, a better impact on things like e-waste? So not only does it help people let their product last longer, but it also has a direct impact on the environment.
Yes, of course. And e-waste is a huge problem. There's currently almost 50 million tons of e-waste that goes every year, and that number is going to definitely increase as years go on. And as technology advances. From that e-waste, only a small fraction or percentage is recycled appropriately. The other ends up in landfill, and technology has quite a few toxic chemicals. So that chemical would leak out into the earth and, of course, make it toxic. So by incorporating self-healing technology, of course the technology would last longer, but it would also not require the user to continuously buy more technology, and therefore it would result in less e-waste.
Yes, and it also, it benefits the environment, but it also benefits, I guess, people's I guess their wallets
budget.
too.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think a lot of us have gone through it where you crack the screen on your technology or things, and that in itself could be hundreds of dollars just to repair that. So that does really help in a sense. I'm not sure if maybe in the future this does get applied to I guess bigger tech companies will start applying this to their like your iPhone is going to have it, your Android's going to have it, things like that. So there is a nice benefit of this for the future, and definitely like you said, it's being applied to the biomedical field. But I know as well you were discussing what I read in the article written about you was that you were developing as well this technology to be implemented in batteries. So can you tell us a bit about that? That too is a huge contribution to e-waste as well. So can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so this technology can be applied to batteries. So the way it would work is the battery life would last much longer. And battery is also used in many different electronics, such as pacemakers.
Yeah.
And the average life of a particular pacemaker is about 6 to 10 years, depending on how often the person needs to use it.
Yeah.
So after that time period, they would have to have another surgery to replace that.
Yeah.
So if we are able to have longer lasting batteries, the pacemaker can last longer, and therefore the patient would not need the surgery as soon or hopefully ever.
Yeah.
And that would not only, of course, surgery, it adds risk to the patient. So not needing that surgery, it lowers the risk level, and also it's helpful for their budget. Depending on where you are in the world, it can be very expensive.
Yeah.
So it's good for the budget as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially, I guess, the prime example would be the United States. Yeah. Like you said, that there's a budget thing, but also I guess it relieves a lot of stress too, the surgery stress, the financial burden,
Yes.
and any complications that can happen in terms of those. And it's not like you can off-put that kind of thing. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to go and get my battery next month or something, and it's really, it's honestly, it's a life or death thing for a lot of people. And obviously not just pacemakers, but there's a lot of technology in the medical industry that requires, has a high dependency on batteries and just the technology to be doing the best that it can.
Yeah.
So absolutely, the research going into this, I think, is really, really amazing. And it can change a lot of things for a lot of people. So that's great that it's being not only to screens and things like that, but now into batteries. And I'm wondering as well, because thinking about, a lot of people have concerns with electric vehicles and how when their batteries go, that contributes to the, I guess, the waste and the, so in that sense, do you think you can apply it to like bigger, I guess, these larger things as well, and not just, I guess, smaller batteries, but even larger ones as well?
Yes, but that would require time and more research. It has to be inputted into this. But yes, there is because as you said, electric cars are the future.
Yeah.
Like there's so many coming out. So this technology would definitely improve upon those batteries and how long they can last. I'm not too sure, or I don't know too much about electric cars, but there's they also have a time limit. After certain years, they won't be good. So this would allow them to last much more longer.
Okay, so there is hope for this kind of research and these technologies that have already been developed to develop further and apply to larger things. And like you said, it's already being implemented at NASA, who already work on these very complex structures. So with that being said, I know we discussed there has been a lot of research, but do you think there's enough going into this this technology?
Well, speaking of just self-healing technology,
Mm-hmm.
yes, there's a lot of research being
Okay.
done on this field. Many different mechanisms, different chemistries that are being explored.
Mm-hmm.
However, there's not so much research in applying this new findings to
Okay.
applications
Mm-hmm.
to allow for further commercializations and having the general public have access to them. So
Yeah.
that's where we're lacking most.
Okay.
So yeah, that is one thing that has to be improved upon more.
Okay, so bringing it to the market
Yes.
and not it just being a concept, but actually it being applied
Yeah.
to the products we've been talking about.
Yes.
Exactly those things. And it is kind of, I guess it is very important because, like we said, there's a lot of benefits it can do to people's livelihoods.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that we have the technology, but we don't have enough, I guess, support and resources to bring it to market just yet, and the research going into it. There is I guess that gap that we need to fill, like you said.
Also, another reason why we're not able to commercialize it as
Mm-hmm.
quickly as we hope is there's a lot of hoops to jump through,
Mm-hmm.
such as all these chemistries that I spoke of earlier. They could be toxic to the general public.
Okay.
So they might work in concept in the lab where we have fume hoods, mask and everything, but we have to also research on how well they would function in just the normal environment where users, like cell phones, that will be touching the person's face.
And skin,
So we
yeah.
don't want toxic material touching our faces or harmful chemistries.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's one of the reasons why it's been so hard to commercialize.
Okay. Yeah. So, and even that one, once you do, I guess, find out, okay, this could be safe, it still has to be approved by
Yes.
someone.
Yeah.
Go through all these, like you said, all these hoops. It's not just about, okay, we're safe. You have to get it approved, has to be sent to market. Who's gonna use it? Who's not gonna use it? So, I guess. Yeah, so it's getting there, but we, like you said, there's more research that needs to be put into
Yes,
it
of course.
specifically to help support it get to the public,
Yes.
and not just be observed in a lab, like you said.
Yeah.
So I guess that hopefully we can get a momentum in that area, and I guess people like yourself and researchers, with like your team and yourself, hopefully this can drive more research going into this, more funding going into it. So that's a hope. There's hope there.
When we do research, though, it's just we're just thinking about the chemistry terminology in chemistry, but the hardest part is just telling people, like the
Yes.
general public, putting it into words to have it so they understand. So I
Yes.
think that's really hard.
It is. That's a really important thing in especially, I guess, in STEM fields, because a lot of that is very the terms are very, they're not as easy to kind of decipher, I guess. So I guess calling it the self-healing technologies it really I guess tells people right away what it is. And it has a nice, I guess, tone to it, because self-healing, okay, that sounds
It inspires interest.
Exactly.
into the
It's a
public.
good headline.
Yeah.
So, but with that being said, what do you think is the next step? So, I know we said we're talking about there needs to be more research. So what is the next step now that we know about this technology? Now that we know it works, what do you think is the next step to kind of get us to the goal of getting it out there to people?
I think the next step would be to collaborate with the industries. We
Okay.
work in research labs, and we don't have access to all these resources and the type of resources that collaborators, companies, they can provide for us.
Okay.
So maybe the next step would be to collaborate with them, get their ideas and opinions, and if you have someone that has the ability to bring this technology to market, it would highly be beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess, and that too is they have an expertise that maybe a researcher wouldn't have in terms of I guess longevity and things. They know more about the specific, say, a cell phone. Say you go to Apple, they know about the technology that goes into it. Okay, what can we apply to it? What is possible and what is not as plausible. So that would be an essential part, is I guess merging the expertise together.
Yes.
I guess tech companies with researchers, how can this technology be implemented to things that are more beneficial, and as well, I guess getting I know we've been talking a lot about the medical side, so getting medical expertise in that as well. What, like you said, what is toxic to humans, what is not toxic to humans. So I think that all plays into, again, the more research that needs to go into it, more I guess collaboration between certain industries. And I think that's a huge part of I guess STEM fields, is the collaboration that we need to do amongst everyone. So that's great. And again, like I said, I'm really impressed by the technology and really impressed by all of your work. I'm not an expert in it, but I just like to kind of let you know that it gives kind of, I guess, hope for what we can do in the future, and I guess address a lot of issues that we do have today. An environment being a really big one, and people trying to just fund their own health and things like that. So I think it's a really important thing to discuss, and to get out there to, again, like we said, not only just to educate people, but also maybe get people interested in resourcing, putting more resources into it, more research into it. Or maybe people getting interested, like yourself, in polymer chemistry and things like that. Like you said, you weren't initially interested in it, but it got you interested, and now you've developed such a really important type of technology that's going to be implemented to other technologies and develop other technologies to bigger things. So with that being said, I think that's a great wrap up of your research and essentially what you do. And again, we all applaud you for what you've done, what your team has done. So thank you so much again for being a part of the episode. And thank you to everyone for joining us today. And we'll see you on the next episode of The Iron Ring.